Hello, happy Thursday. I'm just trying to give people some more time before I start talking. Hello, happy Thursday. If you're just joining. Good evening, Deandra? Did I pronounce it right? Sorry if I tore it up. Hello, happy Thursday. Thank you. Trying to share the video out. But we got about a few more minutes before I get started. Anyway. D. Hey, D. I'm gonna remember that. What state are you in? I'm in Texas. Okay, got it all shared out. Nice, okay. What state are you in? Okay, finally. Okay, so let me pull up my notes. Okay, hey y'all, good evening, happy Thursday. My name is Kayla Simone. I am the founder and the creator of She Believes. I asked you guys what topics did you want me to speak on. You guys said a whole bunch: healing, self-love, faith, forgiving, a whole bunch of them, which I will cover. But tonight we're going to talk about healing. It's going to be over a span of the next couple of weeks, just so I can get the information to you guys about healing. I've been on my healing journey since 2020, so I can give you some good information on healing. And healing is something that everybody should be doing, men and women. It's a part of the process, it's a part of being who God has called you to be and getting to the places that He has assigned for you to be at. So, the first key point will be, is virtual. You should come on my podcast, promote your journal. Oh, I would love to. Can you send me a DM after this? I would love to. So the first part will be what healing is. What is healing? So healing is the intentional process of acknowledging pain, wounds, trauma, and allowing yourself to be transformed by it, not hardened. Okay? It's not, please keep this in your head. It's not a destination, it's a journey. It doesn't happen over a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Sometimes it takes years. Always remember that healing is not a destination, it's a journey. You should be on a healing journey. Okay? Healing is very personal and it's layered. It's going to come in layers, spiritual, emotional, mental. Your healing might even start in a heartbreak to allow you to discover your childhood wounds and generational patterns. Okay? Healing invites honesty. Sometimes healing starts with you telling the truth. When you're on a healing journey, you always need to be telling the truth. So if your feelings is hurt, you need to say your feelings is hurt. You don't have to say this to the person, and I'll get into that in another topic of this series. But when you're healing, you have to admit the truth. You have to admit that you're hurt, but you need to be telling it to yourself, or if you're in therapy, you need to be telling the truth. Okay? So if you're not okay, it's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to not be okay. Examples. Healing is finally admitting that a relationship did more damage than you realize. And instead of choosing to jump to another relationship, you're going to therapy. That is admitting the truth. Okay? Because a lot of people... Let me see. Let me go back. Another example on what healing is taking a break from performing for others and finally asking yourself, what do you want? It's not what look good online. It's not about what look good online or what sounds good in a prayer. It's about asking yourself what you want and how you feel. Another example would be recognizing that although you survived it and you got affected by it, you learned a lesson out of it. Like you might have got your heart broke, or you might have went through what you went through, but you learned from it. That's a part of admitting it. Also, another example of honesty is deleting the number, deleting the message thread, deleting the pictures, deleting the memories, unfollowing the page, unfollowing the people, writing the journal entry that you've been avoiding, and letting it all rise to the surface so it can stop sitting in your soul. Because a lot of people do not be healing because you keep unresolved trauma and wounds inside. In order to heal, it has to come up out of you. If not, you're going to walk around as an unhealed, traumatized, wounded adult, and certain people like me are not going to, just kind of hold your hand through it, because whatever happened to you as a child is not your fault, but your healing as an adult is your responsibility. And I'm just not one of those people who are going to babysit feelings and stuff like that. If you want to heal, you have to do the work. The work is hard. I can tell you, I've been on a healing journey for 5 years. It's hard. So that's what healing is. What healing is not ignoring the pain. A lot of people ignore the pain and they pretend they're not hurting. They just pretend that it didn't happen. That's not what healing is. You can't heal from what you pretend doesn't hurt. Okay? I'm going to say that again. You cannot heal from what you pretend doesn't hurt. That's basically, a lot of people will be like, oh, God got it, or God knows my heart, and you still doing the same stuff. Don't worry like that. That's not what healing is. Healing is not always fast. A lot of the times, healing is very slow. It's a slow, and I'm going to say painful process. It's a slow process. It doesn't mean you're doing any wrong if it's taking longer than expected. And another thing is, when you're healing, you need to learn how to not rush yourself. Because when you rush yourself, you're going to get yourself in more trouble than you already was before then. Healing is a slow process. It's very intentional. Also, what healing is also not. Healing is not revenge. You don't heal to go prove somebody wrong. That means if your heart got broken in a relationship, you don't go jump in another relationship to try to make the other person feel bad because they didn't hurt your feelings. That is not what healing is. And if you do that, you're going to end up more broken than you were before. Okay? You do not heal by seeking revenge, because when you try to seek revenge, you're the one who ends up bitter. Not the other person, it's you. Also, healing is not linear. Healing is like this. Like a heart rate. Some days you're gonna be up, some days you're gonna be down. You could go months good, and then you'll have one day that'll break you. That is okay. It's part of the process. Understand that. And understand you can feel the way that you feel. If you have a bad day, if you had a bad day today, it's okay. Healing is not linear. It's a roller coaster. And just because you feel triggered doesn't mean you're not healing. It just means you still human. Because we're human at the end of the day. And that's what I want you guys to understand. We're human at the end of the day. You have feelings. You need to feel your feelings. That's the only way you're going to heal. Acting like you don't care, acting like it don't hurt, it's going to cost you. An example, some examples of what healing is not is basically posting, let's say an example I wrote down. It would be to post cute quotes about self-love while you still begging for somebody's attention behind closed doors. That's not what healing is. Keep it real with yourself. Because a lot of people don't keep it real with themselves, and then they wonder why they're not healing and why they're bleeding on other people. Hurt people hurt people. Don't post the quotes. Don't post the quotes in the scriptures and you don't live that life in real life. That's why a lot of people be struggling. So don't post cute quotes about healing, about self-love, and behind the scenes you're doing the opposite of that. You're lying to yourself. You're not going to heal. Another example would be saying you forgive somebody just because you too afraid to feel the anger. Stop doing that. Another one would be bouncing back immediately and calling it faith or whatever you calling it when deep down you feel numb, you feel bitter, you feel broken, and you feel lost. You don't bounce back that fast when you go on a healing journey. Especially from whatever broke you. Another example will be, it's not trying to outdo or outshine the person who hurt you just to prove you moved on. I talked about this earlier. If you get your heart broke or somebody did you wrong, don't try to go do something to make them mad or make them feel bad for hurting you. You only hurting yourself in the end, because a lot of times they don't care. So it's not a competition between who can outshine or outdo the other person. Just focus on your healing so you can get what you need and you can become who you're supposed to be, and eventually everything that's for you can find you. Don't try to be in competition. Another example will be healing doesn't always look pretty. I said this earlier. Some days healing looks like crying. You might be crying for days. Might cry for weeks. You might have random moments where you're having good days, good weeks, and you just start crying. That's a part of the process. The third point would be signs you're starting to heal. How you know you're starting to heal will mean you're no longer triggered the same way. Now, I said earlier, you could still get triggered because you're human, but you won't be triggered in the same way. Basically, what used to knock you off your feet or what used to set you off won't really bother you like it used to before. Another one will be you begin to set boundaries. Boundaries are for you, not the other person. It's for you. Boundaries is a part of the healing process. If you do not have any boundaries, you're going to have a hard time. And I'm going to tell you the truth, you're not going to be healing. Because if you don't have any boundaries, people can do whatever they want to you. There's no consequences. So, you know you healing when you begin to set boundaries, or you already have boundaries. Regardless if it's going to make another person feel some type of way, you have boundaries in place. Also, you stop needing closure from other people and you start giving it to yourself. I'm going to talk about it a little bit right now, but closure is a myth. When you do enough healing, you understand that closure is a myth. Closure is not real. Human nature, people like to try to talk it out or try to make somebody understand why they did something to you. That is a myth. Closure is a myth. You need to be trying to give yourself the closure. Stop trying to run back to what broke you and expect them to give the closure. If they didn't give you what you was seeking in the beginning, they're not going to give you any closure. Another sign that you're starting to heal, you recognize patterns. You can see a pattern in somebody's behavior. You can see a pattern in another person. You know how sometimes when you don't heal, you'll meet the same spirit in another body. When you start to heal, you'll be able to recognize that off gate. If you keep finding yourself in situations where you keep attracting the same type of person, now, unless you have an anointing and you have a spirit on you where you're called to empower people, you're going to attract the worst of the worst and you're going to attract the best of the best. But if that don't apply to you and you just find yourself going through life attracting the same kind of man, attracting the same kind of woman, you need to do the internal work so you can recognize the pattern when it presents itself. Another sign you are starting to heal. You feel your emotions instead of avoiding them and numbing them. You do not heal by numbing your emotions. You do not heal like that. That's why so many people walking around now unhealed. Because you just move on. You just move on and try to jump and try to cope and use another person, a substance, or whatever people use to mask your killing, your pain. It don't work like that. You have to feel it. The only way out is through. You have to feel your feelings. And who wants to walk around acting like they don't got no feelings? I don't like nonchalant people, especially nonchalant men. If you ain't got no feelings, you ain't the one for me. What people problem is they be too cool. Too cool gonna have you missing out on good people. Too cool gonna have you missing out on your blessings. So understand that you have to feel your emotions instead of numbing them and avoiding them. When you can actually start to feel your emotions, it's a sign you're starting to heal. Another one, let go of the need to be strong all the time. I'm one of those people. I'm naturally a strong person. Everybody knows me as a strong friend, strong whoever. And I had to learn how to stop feeling the need to be strong all the time. Like, it's okay for me to have moments when I'm weak, but a lot of people see me as this real strong person, which I am. I have a strong personality. I can handle a lot of things that snap other people's backs in halves. But I had to learn on my healing journey that it's okay for me to have a moment of weakness. Okay. And usually when you're considered like the strong person or the strong friend, a lot of people don't even know how to handle you because they just think that you don't go through nothing, or they think that you can handle anything, and then they start to look at you as being strong. And then when you start to say that, oh, you may be having a moment of weakness, it just be kind of hard for them to deal with. So another sign you're starting to heal is you're honest with yourself and God, how you really feel. A part of healing is being honest with yourself. You need to be honest with yourself about how you feel, what happened to you, and just write it down, talk to God, and keep it real. In order to heal, you gotta keep it real. All that fake stuff is not gonna cut it. And one last sign, how you know you're starting to heal, you feel grief, but you don't live in it. It's okay to be sad. It's okay for it's a part of life. You're gonna get your heart broken at one point in time. But the grief that you come with from grieving people or grieving jobs or grieving old environments, it's a part of the process, but don't stay there. Don't let it consume you. So, let me see. My last point would be healing begins with a disruption. Healing always begins with something breaking. My healing journey for me started when I was embarking on a divorce before I knew that's what it was going to be. God came to get me at the exact same time and he said no. That's what prompted my healing journey. So I said all that to say is healing starts with a disruption of something. It starts with something breaking. A breakup, a betrayal, a financial hardship, a loss. And a lot of times it feels like punishment, but it's a wake-up call. God will disrupt what you're comfortable in to get you to confront what's killing you. Sometimes God breaks it so it won't break you. And if you end up getting broken in something to the point where it took the worst thing that could have happened to you in order to get you up out of it, it's literally God had to come and get you up out of it if you don't listen. But like I said, a lot of the times God will break it, whatever it is, before it breaks you. Just don't let it get to the point where it broke you, to the point where God really, really had to come and get you before it got any worse. An example would be, you thought the relationship was ending. You thought that a relationship or whatever it was ending was rejection, but really it was redirection. It was protection. Always understand that anytime God breaks up something, it's not rejection. We look at, when you're unhealed, you look at it as rejection, but really it's protection. You don't know what God was protecting you from. You don't know what could have happened to you if you would have stayed there. Whether it was the environment, job, with a person. Start looking at things as redirections and protection instead of just looking at it as a rejection. Like somebody just, rejected you. Once you start to heal, you're going to start thanking God for the rejection. Thank me later. Also, another example will be the job you thought was secure suddenly lets you go. They fire you. Now you forced to slow down. Now you forced to do that thing that you always wanted to do. You got to thank God for the rejection. I don't care what it is. You got to thank God for the rejection. Another one be your body breaking down with stress, symptoms, migraines, anxiety, fatigue, and you realize the emotional weight and neglect that you've been carrying for too long. Your body starts to break down. So that is a sign. That will be a sign of disruption. Your body just giving out because you've been carrying too much. The job letting you go. You got fired. That's what's going to prompt your healing journey. Whatever it is, something is always going to shake you up so you can start getting in alignment and getting healed. Also, number 5, healing looks like becoming someone you don't recognize yet. When I started my healing journey in 2020, I remember one time I looked at myself in the mirror and I said I did not like what I see. Mind you, I am not a person who struggles with my confidence and how I look. Never had that problem. When I went on the healing journey, I just looked in the mirror and I just didn't like what I seen. God gave me the revelation that I did not like what I seen because he was stripping me from what I used to be. I looked totally different. I wasn't used to it yet. As I started healing, as the years and the months started going by, I started to understand that. So it was just like, oh, no wonder I said that, because I did not recognize who I was. I wasn't the same person that I used to be. So always understand, healing looks like becoming someone you don't recognize yet. You're not going to recognize you basically like breaking something and then pulling something out of it. That's how it is. You're not going to recognize your new becoming self yet. And that is okay. That is a part of the process. If you ever feel like that or have felt like that, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't felt like that yet, it's going to happen to you. You will basically be dying to yourself. One thing about healing, you have to die to yourself multiple times. You cannot keep the same versions of you going into the next. If you asking for more, you want more, you want to do more, you cannot take the old version with you. It don't work like that. You can't take dead weight to the next level. So understand that. You will outgrow the versions of you that survived. You will outgrow the versions of you that were broken. You will outgrow the versions of you that were wounded. And when you start to do that, you're not going to recognize the person you were before, because you were a person who was wounded. You was broken. You can look totally different. Your posts help others or share them often. Thanks for spreading the gospel. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just doing what God done called me to do. But I appreciate it. Also, you'll find peace in places that once held pain. That really takes some work. A lot of people struggle with that. But when you have gotten to a certain point in your healing journey, you'll start to find peace in places that caused you trauma, right? Also, a big one. I need you to get it if you're struggling with it. You don't have to beg to be chosen anymore. You'll know your value. When you start outgrowing the old version of you and you start dying to yourself, you're not going to have to beg nobody. You're not going to have to beg for a job. You're not going to have to beg for nothing, because you understand your value. And I'm going to hold y'all hands when I say this. If you find yourself begging for people, if you find yourself begging for a job, if you find yourself begging in any way, shape, or form, you do not know yourself. You do not know your value. And we're going to work on it. Because you shouldn't be begging. Especially when it comes to other people, you should not be begging for nobody's attention. You should not be begging for nobody to love you. You shouldn't be begging for nobody to understand you, for somebody to get it. When it's people out here who have already gotten it. You just don't want to let go. And the more you sit in unhealed wounds and trauma and not knowing who you are and not knowing what you carry and not knowing your value, you're going to continue to beg for breadcrumbs. Imagine somebody giving you a breadcrumb, just enough breadcrumbs just to keep you in line. And like I said, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. This is what some men and some women do to y'all. They give you a breadcrumb, it'll keep you going, and they'll keep giving you breadcrumbs. Why are you on the ground scavenging for breadcrumbs when you can have the whole loaf? We're gonna get there though. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna get there. You definitely struggling with this a little bit. And okay, you're honest with yourself. So since you're honest with yourself, that means you can take the necessary steps to heal yourself. Because I talked about this earlier, a lot of people are not honest. If you're not honest and you can't keep it real with yourself, you will never heal. You have to keep it real with yourself. And then if you don't keep it real with yourself, you cannot expect other people to keep it real with you. Right? So we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Because the goal is, y'all shouldn't be begging nobody. God didn't put you here for you to beg for something when he already got who your person is. Or he already got what your assignment is. He already got it. He had it since you was formed in the womb. You just have to get in alignment. That's how alignment works. Healing is going to get you in alignment. And one thing about God, he will allow you to settle on the life that you choose. Everybody has their destination. It was set up like this from day one. The person that you was always supposed to be with. The things that you were supposed to do in this world. If you don't heal and get in alignment, you ain't gonna never get there. Whole time you're gonna be thinking you living this extravagant life, and you might to the eye. But internally, you're gonna be going through some things. And when it comes to healing, you just gotta want to come up out of that stuff. You gotta want to come up out of lying, gaslighting, feeling sorry for yourself, a whole bunch of stuff. You have to want to come up out of it, because in order for you to heal, you have to come up out of bondage. Bondage is anything that is stopping you from becoming the person that God has called you to be, and basically becoming the best version of yourself. Bondage starts as a child. I could go all day about childhood trauma and stuff like that. because I've dealt with people who severely struggle with childhood trauma, and it has formed them into an adult, and they don't know how to move. They don't know how to function because as a child, something happened to them. So when you start healing, you are going to be able to see what really happened to you as a child. Then you're going to be able to correlate it to why you used to do the things that you do, or why you used to accept the things that you accepted. So, let's see what else I wrote. The healed version of you will be softer. You'll be more selective. You'll definitely have discernment. That's a topic for another time. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be bolder. You're going to be wiser. And you're going to be more confident. Either way it goes, you're not going to be who you used to be. So, when you're unhealed, you're going to say yes when you want to say no. When you unhealed, you're a people pleaser. Everybody has struggled with this at one point in time. Some people are still struggling with it. Stop being a people pleaser. If you have a hard time telling people no, you have a hard time saying you're not going to be accepting certain things, you're going to have a hard time in life. People are going to run over you left and right. And mind you, I'm holding y'all hands when I say this. If you do not know how to stand up for yourself, you're going to have a hard time. People are going to always take advantage of you. And I have a video on my page talking about being too understanding. Because when you become too understanding, it becomes a feeding ground for you to get gaslit and manipulated. Oh, I'm just so understanding. I'm just a nice person. I get tired of hearing that. It's a difference between nice versus kind. You need to be a kind person, not a nice person. Nice people get walked over. Walked over, stepped on. Pick which one you're going to be. Pick the life that you're comfortable with. And I'm holding y'all hand when I say this. If you're comfortable with letting people run over you when you know you don't like certain things, you can't be mad at nobody but yourself. You have to do the work. You have to do the work. That's the only way you're going to come up out of that type of bondage. So if you don't like something, say you don't like it. If the person don't fix it, move on. And I want to say it's simple, but it really is simple. At the end of the day, this is your life, like I said. And you can live it on a level less than what God wants you to have. But it's up to you. Because nobody, I'm holding y'all hand when I say this too, nobody's coming to save you. I'm going to tell you that right now. Nobody's coming to save you. You're going to have to do the work. God will meet you where you at. God can't save you unless you can save yourself. So you have to want to be able to do the work. The work is hard, and that's why a lot of people are not healing. That's why a lot of people are unhealed, traumatized, wounded, grown adults. People older than me act like children because they never healed. So another example will be you used to be afraid to go places alone. A lot of people are scared to go places by themselves because you don't enjoy your own company. If you cannot go out to eat by yourself, you can't go to a movie by yourself, you can't do things by yourself, you're going to have a hard time. Because that means you're codependent on something. And when it comes to healing, you cannot be codependent on nothing. Only thing you should be codependent on is God himself. But when you start healing, you can go places by yourself. I've been on a solo location out the country before. I've been to solo concerts. I go a lot of places by myself because I enjoy my own company. I don't need nobody to always meet me here and do this with me. I enjoy myself. I've done the internal work. I don't seek validation in other people. I'm not codependent and I don't have attachment issues. That's why I can do things like that. But that's the thing that a lot of people struggle with. They just can't go places by themselves. Can't do a lot of things by themselves. If you can't do a lot of things by yourself, you're going to have a hard time. Another one, how you know you healed? You used to fight for everyone's attention. Now you enjoy being hidden because it gives you space to hear God and heal without the noise. When it comes to healing, you are going to go through an isolation phase. If you cannot sit in the isolation phase, you're going to have a hard time. That is literally part of the process. You have to be separated. You have to be put in the dark So God can do his molding, his stripping, his crushing, and his pruning before he throw you back out there. If you can't handle that, because it get heavy, it get deep. If you can't handle that, you have a hard time. And you're not going to get to the places that you want to go. Another example of how you know that you have began to heal is you used to identify with your struggle. So your identity was a part of whatever hurt you. When you heal, you now have peace and you now recognize that you're not what hurt you. Does that make sense? People basically won't be able to relate to you because the things that kept you in bondage, that kept you in cahoots with certain people, they're not going to be able to recognize you because you don't identify by that anymore. So it's basically like spirit, no spirit. Some of the people that y'all hang around, some of the people that y'all in relationships with, y'all only in relationships and around each other because y'all have the same trauma. Y'all trauma bonded. When you heal and you become the best version of yourself, you don't identify with that stuff anymore. That's what I was getting at. You don't identify with that. Until you do the work, you can always be in cahoots with people who are related to your trauma. Is that like saying I'm a single mama with 3 baby daddies? No. No. What I mean is, if, let's say, let me use an example. Let's say you hang with people who are gossipers. Everybody you hang with is a gossiper. You used to hang with them and used to gossip. That's what I mean by that. Your identity will be associated with gossiping or manipulating or things like that. Until you come up out of stuff that had you in bondage, you are going to be identified by what you used to struggle with or what your pain is, if that makes sense. So when you heal, you don't identify with your struggle. When you heal, you know your identity in Christ. You know who God has called you to be. Because when you're unhealed, that's what it is. You identify with what you struggle with. So I've been around people who are manipulators, liars. Lying is a big one. A lot of the times they are around people who they can lie to or who are just like them. That's what I mean. So I got some journal prompts because I always do journal prompts at the end of my live. That was the last topic that I had for what is healing. So I talked about what healing is, what healing is not, signs you're starting to heal, how healing often starts with a disruption, and healing looks like becoming someone you don't recognize yet. That was all a part of part 1. Next week, I'll be talking about something else as it relates to healing. So journal prompts that you could write down would be, what does healing mean to me? What does it mean to you? Another question is, what pain have you been avoiding or covering up that still needs attention? What are you struggling with? You need to write that question down because it's going to help you. In what areas have you seen small signs of growth or change in myself? Another question is, what's one belief I need to release in order to fully heal? What lie have you been believing? I'll give you an example. If you've dealt with people who always treated you like you wasn't enough, you'll start to believe that you're not enough. So what lie are you believing that you need to fully release in order to heal? Write that down. What would it look like to give yourself permission to heal? Not perfectly, but fully. What would that look like? Who would you be? Another one is, what is something you've been pretending you're over, but you haven't truly healed from? Where have you mistaken strength for survival? So those were all the questions that I wrote down. I'll give some new ones next week pertaining to that topic, but healing is the foundation for clarity, obedience, confidence, faith, purpose. Healing is a part of the process. That I don't need it. What you mean? Healing is a part of the process, and so many women are broken and performing and being silent in their struggles and just not doing the work. Y'all gotta come up out of that, because when you don't heal, you're gonna build your whole entire life on pain, and you're gonna be disguising that strength. You're gonna be saying that you healed and you really not. And when you're not healed, you bleed on other people. Like I said earlier, hurt people hurt people. When you don't do the work, you are going to cause unnecessary trauma and pain to other people. People that don't deserve that. People that are sent to be blessings in your life. You have to do the work. You have to want to come up out of it. Because if the enemy know that he can get you in the areas that he got you, he going to keep you there. This is real life. People don't like to talk about demons and all of that type of stuff. It's a real thing. If you listen to music and you be hearing them people say they be fighting demons, it's a real thing. Strongholds. Strongholds in your life that are keeping you bound. So, healing is a part of the process. You'll stop settling for survival. You'll stop settling for pieces. You'll stop settling. And you'll become whole. And you'll get the whole thing. You'll get what belongs to you. But you got to do the work. Like, I don't know any other way to put it. You can't shortcut yourself through it. You have to do the work. And I didn't talk about the shortcutting part. I didn't really go into detail with it, because it's probably in another topic that I'll be talking about over the weeks. But when it comes to healing, you cannot shortcut it. And like I said, you can't run to another person or no drugs or no sex or whatever people like to do to heal. You can't do that. You're going to have to sit with yourself. You're going to have to sit in a quiet place. You're going to have to sit with God. You're going to have to sit with it. That's the only way you're going to get through it. Like I said, the only way out is through. And if you can't go through it, you're not going to get out of it. I didn't make the rules, but that's just how it goes. Healing requires you to feel. Requires you to feel. So, I hope that blessed somebody tonight. Next week, let me see what my topic is next week. So next week, part 2 will be healing from what they never apologized for. So that'll be next week's topic. I will see y'all again next Thursday at the same time, same place. And I hope y'all have a good night. Bye.